Hello my guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Yes, this is a Ponyo romper, thank you for asking. As you may know, Studio Ghibli is a Japanese-based animation studio that has made many wonderful animated films, some of which have won the Oscar for Best Animated Picture, and my favorites are the ones directed by Hayao Miyazaki, the auteur of Japanese film animation. I love the Studio Ghibli films, not just because of the art, but the soundtracks, the characters, the themes and messages. The characters are always complex, wonderful. The female characters are fantastic. They never stray into being a damsel in distress or just a one-note simple character. Even the villains always have such an interesting motivation. And you may be wondering how this ties into books. I do read-alikes sometimes. Well, these are books that I would like to see Studio Ghibli adapt, and I'm sure this will never happen, but I just wish I could see some of these books in the Ghibli art style. First book, I think this is like my mom's copy, The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. This is a children's classic written in like 1912. It's pre-war Europe, pastoral, and follows several talking anthropomorphic animals. It is like, I mean, I really like the Redwall books as a kid, but these are like a Redwall book where nothing bad happens and all they do is eat. It's just so soothing in a way that many Studio Ghibli movies are, where there is, you know, like the tiniest bit of conflict, but there's just a lot of people spending time with each other, enjoying each other's company, and beautiful scenes of the countryside. And yes, maybe it's a little Disney to have anthropomorphic animals, but I think Studio Ghibli should do more animal movies, and I would just love to see this one adapted. Pretty much ever since I started watching Studio Ghibli films, I was like, man, I wish they would do Wind in the Willows. They've done a lot of British children's classics, and so I would like to see them do this one. Next would be Sabrina by Garth Nix. I know I talk about this book a lot, but I will keep talking about it until it's more well known. Sabrina follows a young woman named Sabrina, grew up in a kingdom with kind of pre-war Europe style technology. There's cars and telegrams, but in the country to the north, which is protected by a magical wall, there is a more medieval style kingdom with magic that has been overrun by zombies, and Sabrina has been taught the art of like good necromancy by her father, who holds a position known as the Aporson, whose job it is to kind of keep an eye on and control all of the evil dead in the medieval kingdom, and when he goes missing, it's up to her to take up the mantle of the Aporson and right the wrongs of this kingdom. She fights zombies, she gets a sassy talking cat, she gets a really, really good love interest in Touchstone. The two of them are extremely cute together. I love how competent Sabrina is. She never shirks from her duty, even though she doesn't always know what's going on, but she always tries her hardest, and I just really love competent female heroines in YA. Now, the reason that I would love to see Studio Ghibli adapt this is manifold. I feel like a lot of people, when they think of Studio Ghibli, they're like, ooh, so soft, but like, Princess Mononoke goes hard, as does Sabrina. So for all of my Princess Mononoke fans who like the drama and the epic scale of it, that is exactly what Sabrina is. Pretty much as soon as I started reading this book, I was imagining it in the Studio Ghibli style. It has flight, which of course Miyazaki loves. There are these literal paper airplanes, so they're like bird-shaped and they're made out of paper, and you fly them by whistling. They're so cool. The magic system in these books is really cool. But I would just love to see this book adapted by anyone, but especially by Studio Ghibli. It's such a classic fantasy feeling, and yet unlike any other fantasy that there has ever been and has been since. If you're interested in this book, I highly, highly, highly recommend the audiobook. I've actually never read this book with my eyes, because I only listened to the audiobook read by Tim Curry. It's fabulous. Moving on to Hanu by Ursula K. Le Guin. You may say, oh Julia, they already adapted to Hanu. No, they didn't though. They didn't. If they could take a second pass at that, that would be great. So, Hanu is the best Earthsea book. Haters out there, I know this book has some haters and they're all old men. I'll fight an old man in a parking lot. I don't care. I'll beat him up. Hanu is really, really good. This book takes place when Tanar and Ged, who are the main characters of the first three books in the Earthsea series, have grown up. Tanara is a middle-aged woman, and Ged is kind of a middle-aged to older man. In the previous book, Ged had lost his magic, which kind of removed this spell that made him not unattractive, but just like no one it ever occurred to them to think of him as an object of desire. But now that that spell is gone, Tanara is like, oh wait, I would date Ged, and it's really great. They have like a very mature and wonderful relationship. And Tanara has also adopted a young woman named Theru, who has been horrifically burned and abused, and Tanara is raising her as her own child, even though her adult children have grown up and left. Her husband's died recently, so she's the only one to take care of the farm until Ged comes along. And most of this book is just like a pastoral fantasy of Tanara and Theru going about their daily chores, and also raising goats and interacting with Ged's aunt, who is an old witch. And there's not really much plot until the last part of the book, but it is such a sweet, soothing story, much in the way that many Studio Ghibli films are. I know why they adapted the Earthsea books. I haven't even seen the Tales from Earthsea movie, and I don't know if I want to, because I would really just love to see them adapt to Hanu. And yes, I did pick this book over all the other books, because one, it's my favorite, maybe with the exception of the third one, but this has so much of like that, the pastoral scenes that Miyazaki loves. It's got dragons, but mainly it's just about like women and women talking about their magic, and I just think that's really neat and something that Studio Ghibli would handle well. Again, haters of this book, at me and I will fight you. Let me know a time and place. Next book I would love to see Studio Ghibli adapt is Black Dove, White Raven by Elizabeth Wayne. This is one of the books in her Young Pilot series, although the characters don't really interact with any of the other characters, primarily because it takes place in Ethiopia in the late 30s. So for those of you who don't know, as I didn't, Italy invaded Ethiopia in about 1936, and this book is about several Americans, a white woman and her mother, and then their adopted black brother. The boy Teo's father is Ethiopian, and they've sort of come to Ethiopia after his mother passed away to live and work there, as well as for Teo to kind of reconnect to his family history. Their mother is a pilot, and she flies and takes photographs, which she then sells to National Geographic, and all of this is happening while war is breaking out and Italy is invading. But much of it is just about Emilia, the sister, and Teo's lives in this village in Ethiopia, their daily lessons, and then also the games that they play where they pretend that they are the Black Dove and White Raven, and the stories that they make up for each other. So I think that this is very similar to The Wind Rises, or it has the same feel of it, where there are the kind of like imagination spots that Ghibli would adapt really well, because it is historical fiction but kind of has like a fantastical element to it, like The Wind Rises. Obviously, Ghibli would love to draw all of the 1930s airplanes, but for those of you who are fans of Elizabeth Wayne, you may be wondering why I'm saying they should adapt this and not Codename Verity. I just don't think Studio Ghibli is the right studio to adapt Codename Verity. It's very bleak, and while this book, yes, has some dark parts, it's kind of for a younger age range and is much, much less sad than Codename Verity. It just has kind of the atmosphere of The Wind Rises and Porco Rosso. Shout out to Porco Rosso, that's no joke my favorite Ghibli film, and like no one ever talks about it. But it kind of has like a melancholy to it that Porco Rosso does, and just like a poignancy that I think would be done so well in animation. And the last book that I would love to see adapted by Studio Ghibli is The Wye Free Men by Terry Pratchett. This is practically a British classic at this point. It deserves to be adapted along with Howl's Moving Castle. I love Tiffany Aching so much. She is such an incredible character. It would be wonderful to see her join the pantheon of Ghibli's incredible female characters. In this book, she is 9 years old and teams up with a tribe of 6-inch tall blue men when her little brother is kidnapped by the Queen of the Fairies. It has a kind of fairy tale element to it, for sure, but stars such an incredible female character who I look up to as a source of inspiration, and she's 9. She's so responsible, so competent, doesn't always know what she's doing, but will fake it till she makes it, and eventually becomes a witch in training and then a witch. This book is sort of about her first adventure. Of course, I would love to see all of them adapted, but I think this is a very good one to start with, just because It is so whimsical, and the sequences in Fairyland are just begging to be animated. I think pretty much ever since this book came out, they've been in talks to adapt it. None better to adapt it than Studio Ghibli. I don't think that's gonna happen, but I can dream. Alright, that is all the books that I have. I tried to include a wide breadth of tone and subject matter because Studio Ghibli movies, of course, both take place in fantastical and real worlds, and yet have a lot of the same themes, so I tried to incorporate those themes and, of course, strong female characters, fantastical elements. And if you have any other ideas of books that you'd like to see adapted, please let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, please like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time.